Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. So I obviously am not Mayor Mark Drenick. He's a little bit under the weather. I hope he will feel better soon. This is my very first Common Council meeting as the acting mayor, so be gentle with me and wish me good luck. Do we have any petitioners in the gallery? If you'd like to speak.
Petitioner.
If you'd like to speak.
Yeah. Representative Sophia, please stand up and introduce yourself.
Cynthia Walton Levitt, pastor of the Red Door of the First United Presbyterian Church, and a member of the Fox Grove Fitness Center. You want me to state my business?
Sure, yes.
Okay, Marie Lucens and I, both city residents, are here to ask you to put the resolution in support of the Fox Grove Fitness Center back on the agenda, so that it might reflect the city council's support of the YMCA leasing it, so that the center will, the fitness center will continue to serve the public.
Okay.
I don't have the wording on the resolution yet, but we will by the time we get to it on the agenda.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, we'll close that portion of the meeting. We don't have a public hearing tonight. Boards and commission reports. The first one is me, Parks and Rec Commission. So I wasn't able to be there and I hadn't had a chance to get up to speed on the meeting at the last council meeting. So I'm just gonna give my report tonight. There was a petitioner from the Oneonta Middle School Tennis Club. They were requesting the use of the Wilbur Park Tennis Courts 6 and 7 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They will share the space with the OHS varsity tennis program. There was a little correspondence from Diane Earl, who's co-chair of the Neowah Dog Park Committee, who spoke about concerns about large dogs using the small dog park section. Some information was put forward to the public on Facebook. Basically just that, you know, you're supposed to use your specific section based on what kind of dog you have. A small dog is considered 25 pounds or less. Mike Maben, who's the representative for the NICA bike race, which is a return user in the park, typically through Wilbur Park. They are not holding the bike race in Wilbur Park this year. It's going to be at Glimmerglass. Their plan is to alternate between Oneonta and Glimmerglass going forward. Parks Administrator Lansing gave her a report. The summer concert series schedule begins July 6th. Which is a Thursday night at 7 p.m. and at the mobile stage in Neowah Park. The schedule can be found on the City of Oneonta Parks and Rec Facebook. Let's see, the Wilbur Park tennis courts practice, match, and recreation schedules are currently posted at the courts, and they are open and ready for spring use. There will be an EV electric vehicle car show at Damaski Field in Neowah Park on June 3rd from 11 to 2. The event is open to electric car owners and dealerships. And right now they're looking for sponsors and event partners. Something I mentioned last time was also reiterated at this meeting. Neowah Park will have additional trash receptacles as soon as Main Street is outfitted with the new ones. Pickleball courts in Neowah are open and ready for use. And the next parks meeting is Monday, May 1st at 7 o'clock. So community wellness is also May 1st. Any questions? Thoughts, comments, concerns? Okay, great. Thank you. Next up is the environmental board.
Yeah, the environmental board met last Tuesday, April 11th. And we had quite a robust conversation about the Climate Smart Communities program. We were fortunate enough to have City Administrator Tice there, as well as Steve, I forget all the exact titles, as well as our very competent intern Morgan from City of Oneonta to discuss the Climate Smart Communities program. And what we're going to be doing is Morgan is going to be working on that moving forward this summer and next academic year, trying to take some of the actions that has already been done by the city and be able to kind of get those into the portal so we can kind of get credit for those. as well as working on some of the kind of low hanging fruit types of actions. The environmental board will play a larger role in this moving forward, so we can kind of move the environmental board to kind of the overseeing body of the kind of smart communities. I think this will help to keep progress on some of these particular actions. Just want to thank City Administrator Tice and Mr. Yearly for attending the meeting. It was great to have you there, and we certainly had a lot of great discussions about some of the things that are going on. It was really good for the environmental board to know what the city has been working on and some different kind of dreams and sustainable efforts that have been made here. I think they'll be a little pleasantly surprised at the thinking that's been going on about these particular issues. We also had standing committee reports in urban forests. Let's see, we discussed the proposed tree ordinance and got some feedback from Stephen Yearly about that. Some revisions are needed. And we talked about a proposed tree board membership and how that would look. Community engagement subcommittee also talked about Facebook. They have certainly been increasing their Facebook posts that I've been plugging away. If you do not follow the Oneonta Environmental Board on Facebook, go follow them because they've got a lot of really great timely posts, and they're certainly upping the number of posts that they have that are very informative. Energy subcommittee, we talked about the geothermal loop, the kind of planning that we're doing here in the city, and again, Greg's presence there helped to kind of provide some more information about that. And we got an update about the public spaces kind of creek naming project, that there are 2 teachers that are involved in that effort. And so thank you to those 2 teachers for what they're doing to try to help us to kind of get that off the ground. And keep Mohawk Valley beautiful. I think top of my head, April 19th, there's going to be, I think that's tomorrow on the city hall steps at 11 o'clock. Is that what time it is? Something like that. There's going to be to keep Mohawk Valley beautiful. It's going to be kind of doing a bit of a. This is a bit of a kind of an introduction to the whole program and a commemoration of that. So there also going to be a pickup after that, a litter pickup, and so that is what's taking place. That was the meeting.
Any questions?
Yeah, so Mark, I had that in my notes from your last one about something. It's 11 o'clock on the front steps of City Hall.
Yep.
Like that Mohawk Valley, keep clean.
Yep.
The Earth Day in the rail yards, is that immediately following that?
I thought it was, but maybe I'm off. If somebody can check that. I thought that the or the cleanup of the rail yards was immediately after
1 minute.
1 o'clock. Okay, but it's the same day, right, Karen? Okay, good. Thank you.
And then just to plug, there will be a dumpster at 56 Center Street for any litter pickup throughout the weekend. I'm gonna have gloves and bags available. So you can text me at 261-1784 and we can arrange pickup or drop off for that. So if you can't make it tomorrow, there's still opportunity. Thanks for that. Okay, thank you, Mark. So moving on, legislative committee would be Chair Rafter, but he's not in attendance. Dave, would you mind giving Councilmember Risberger, would you mind giving the report?
Yeah, you just have the other members need to fill in if there's anything I missed. Our entire conversation, we met on April 10th. Our entire conversation was about demolitions and just trying to narrow down. The whole purpose is to try to have demolitions of small buildings not have to go through the planning commission. So we're really talking garages or even sheds. So what we did decide was let's see here, under 144 square feet, being an automatic demolition allowed, just coming to the code office and filling out paperwork. Over 144 square feet would be a point system. This is usually garages, but some of the things we'd be taking into account are the age of the structure, the historical significance, and that would require an opinion from the Architectural Review Board. Or the historical review board. We're actually looking to, it's on the agenda later this evening, I believe. There we go, the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission. Whether the environmental impact and whether it would be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. So as of right now, we sent it back to the code office and the wording of the legislation is going to be worked on by them and then brought back to committee.
No, sounds right. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, back to me for the Finance and Human Resources Committee. This is the Katie Leparty shoe show today. Okay, so Finance, Human Resources met on April 13th. We had several things on the agenda, as we typically do. The first item was the DPW camera van. This is something that's been budgeted for several years, but we have sent out bids and a request for bids and not gotten any responses. So we are at a place where we might be able to do an emergency purchase for this. It's not on the agenda tonight, but that's upcoming. There is I'm just trying to figure out which agenda items they are, but just kidding. Okay, we discussed DPW maintenance worker appointment. We also discussed creating a title in the OPT department, which is basically there's budgeted full-time driver, but we would be shifting the driving hours to part-time drivers and creating a working supervisor position. That'll be something that would be impacting us financially next budget year. We do have the RFP in the agenda for the award for the RFP for the administration for the lead water service grant. It's 100% grant funded. So that's something that you should know. There's also the Oneonta Theater Grant, which is on the agenda. Again, $1,800 entirely grant funded. So we're just signing the agreement and the contractor is coming at the end of April to do the work. There is the replacing ash trees after loss grant. It's $40,000. There are going to be 45 trees planted in the River Street area over the next 2 summers, plus the apple trees at Swart Wilcox. And there's an event for the apple trees at Swart Wilcox.
It's the 28th at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Down at the Swart Wilcox House, apple tree planting.
Cool. So going forward, we're gonna have some seeker work to do for that, where it's gonna be a type 2 action. But we'll have to, keep an eye out for that. We got an update on the parking task force. We had a brief but robust discussion on water and sewer billing. We discussed the fee schedule a little bit, and that'll be our topic kind of going forward. And then also the memorandum of agreement, which is on our agenda. It's basically updating language for a previous MOA, which had to do with firefighters going to the academy and giving them space between a shift and their travel. So that's it. Any questions? No? Okay, lovely. Moving on. City administrators report. Please take it away.
Acting there. Just a few, mostly DPW updates this week. Wayfinding signs for the GRI project, GRI funded project. They're in stock and DPW be done throughout the city, hopefully downtown, center city area. You may have seen some of those going out. There are quite a few. I think there's 55 total. They're going to do them in chunks of 4 or 5 at a time. The ones you've seen have gone up quick because they're just mounted to existing poles and posts, but a lot of them, most of them have, concrete installed and a little bit process. So it's probably going to take us through the end of the summer before we get everything installed. DPW is also replacing some failing slotted drain on West Broadway. West Broadway is that storm system needs quite a bit of work. Ultimately, a bigger capital project, but there were some sections that really were falling apart and needed to be done now. So Gardner Place reconstruction project is going well. RB Robinson's replaced the sanitary sewer main and the storm lines. They're on curves this week. On track for subbase reconstruction after that, hopefully paving by first or second week in May. Speaking of paving, the asphalt plant should be open any day now. Our DPW patch crew will be out of New York City and Boston.
Could you speak a little louder?
Could you turn on your microphones? I can't hear you.
Oh, sure, I
Thank
can
you.
speak up. We don't have projected microphones, they're just for the recording. I'll speak a little bit louder. Sorry about that. We also have sidewalk replacement being planned for this year. The design and specs, drawings and specs are in progress for that. We'll put that out in phases. The first phase are miscellaneous handicap ramps to be replaced at different sections. Certain streets, I don't have a list in front of me. We do have Elm Street on the list, sidewalk from North to Cedar along the east side. That'll be the second thing that goes out. We're gonna do some curb realignment and a new crosswalk at East and Hazel and Woodside intersection. And we've got a bunch of other miscellaneous smaller sections to be done that I don't have a list right in front of me, but that'll come later on as the year goes on. Arbor Day, we mentioned, I'll just go through that. I'm not sure if it did in the paper, but there will be our annual Arbor Day celebration on Friday, April 28th. Time will be confirmed either noon or 1 p.m. or thereabouts at Greater Plains School. We're starting to rotate which elementary school we do this at this year. We've done it in Riverside a number of times. And Fred Hathaway, our arborist, has been working with the students at Greater Plains this year. They're going to plant a ceremonial sugar maple tree. The mayor will be there to read the Arbor Day proclamation. Celebrating Arbor Day is one of the things we have to do to maintain our status as Tree City. In Tree City, this will be the 37th year the city's been designated as such. Fred, once again, with the students this year from Greater Plains, has challenged them if they can see if they can find the largest diameter tree in the city. I can tell you where it is. So we'll see who gets closest, if anyone guesses it right. And as Carrie was mentioning, there's going to be some apple trees, 12 apple trees planted on this Wilcox property. Basically recreating the historic apple orchard that used to be on that property. And I remember years ago that actually existed early
late 1800s, early 1900s.
It's pretty cool. They're on the is it Historical Society's website that has the
Fort Wilcox site has the diaries of the Mr. Wilcox, I forget his first name, who used to live there. They're posted so you can see the handwritten ones, and his handwriting is very legible. They're really cool. Sure.
You read him talking about the orchard.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we're planting 25 street trees, and we're going to focus on the 6th ward, and we're trying to go in a certain neighborhood each year, so that watering and maintenance is not spread out throughout the city. Makes it easier. It makes more of an impact if we focus on one neighborhood at a time. So we'll move around a few years. And I just want to mention Old Fest, which is just the downtown street closure event that's coming up next Saturday. It's coming the following April 29th. That'll be a downtown Main Street.
Let's see how.
I did not check that before I came in.
I didn't verify it. I will get it to you now.
Cool. Thank you, Greg. Okay, so since I am not the mayor, I do not have prepared remarks, but I will take this opportunity. And I'm really heartened to see Reverend Cynthia and citizens in the audience to talk about this. We did have a resolution on our agenda with regard to the Fox Care Fitness Center closing. This is something that really deeply has impacted our community since the news broke. And I just wanted to publicly thank the YMCA and Frank Russo, who consistently step up for our community. I know that this is not easy for them to do, and they're doing it because it's right and it's important. And so I know that they are going to, while kind of the big hurdle of it closing has passed, they're going to need our support going forward. So I'm really grateful that you came and are willing to work on the resolution so that we can express our support for the YMCA as well. Okay. Now I get to see how I do at public reading. Consent agenda. Motion number 1, that the Common Council approves the minutes of the regular meeting held April 4th, 2023. Motion number 2, that the Common Council approves the warrants totaling $438,311.30, and that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. Motion number 3, that the Common Council approves the purchasing agent's recommendation and award request for proposals for administrative services for the Oneonta Lead Water Service Replacement Program to Toma Development Consultants 34 Tompkins Street, Portland, New York, 13045. In the not to exceed amount of $37,000, subject to the review of the city attorney, and further authorizes the mayor to execute the contract. The Common Council further authorizes the creation of the capital project budget being funded by a community development block grant as administered by the Housing Trust Fund Corporation, represented by the Office of Community Renewal, and with no required local match. And further authorizes any necessary budget amendments and transfers, and to take any actions and provide any additional information that may be required to implement the proposed program, subject to review by the city attorney. Number 4, motion that the Common Council approves the purchasing agent's recommendation and awards the agreement for a site contamination review to Teeter and Teeter Design Consultants, 32 Clinton Street, Homer, New York, 13077, in the amount of $1,800, subject to the review of the city attorney, and further authorizes the mayor to execute the contract. The Common Council further authorizes the creation of the capital project budget being funded by the New York Main Street Program as administered by the Housing Trust Fund Corporation, represented by the Office of Community Renewal, and further authorizes any necessary budget amendments and transfers, and to take any actions and provide any additional information that may be required to implement the proposed program, subject to review by the city attorney. Motion number 5, that the Common Council approves the following resolution. Whereas the city of Oneonta was awarded an NYSDEC tree planting in disadvantaged communities after tree loss TPDC grant for the city of Oneonta planting trees after ash loss projects. Whereas the TPDC program requires a seeker determination as part of the environmental review process. Therefore, be it resolved that the city of Oneonta hereby determines that the city of Oneonta planting trees after ash loss project is a type 2 action as defined by New York State Statute section 617.5 C8, C10, and C20. And be it resolved that pursuant to section 617.5 C8, C10, and C20, this activity involves maintenance of existing landscaping or natural growth, routine activities of educational institutions, public or private best forest management practices. And be it resolved that the city of Oneonta is not required to conduct any further environmental review as a result of this type 2 determination, and be it resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Motion number 6, that the Common Council authorizes the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement between the city and the Oneonta Professional Firefighters Local 408 IAFF to settle a potential grievance pertaining to alleged violations of the memorandum of agreement signed July 28th, 2021, which created paragraph F of the collective bargaining agreement under Article 9, Section 4, relating to release time for training. Motion number 7, that the Common Council concurs with the mayor's recommendations and approves the appointment of the following city residents to city boards and or commissions. To the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission, Dara Brady, Bob Rozowski, Sarah Evanson, William Plymell, Helen Reese, and Gerard Webster, all expiring April 18th, 2026. And to the Examining Board of Electricians, David Reese, expiring April 18th, 2026. That's the end of the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they would like to pull? Yeah, number 4. Okay. Anything else? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda minus motion 4?
So. Second.
Dave, followed by, Mark, followed by Dave. He said so moved. I gotta give it to him. All right. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger,
Yeah.
Acting Mayor LaForest,
Aye.
Councilmember Carson,
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan. Aye.
Cool. Okay, motion number 4. This is with regard to the site contamination review award.
Yeah, you had.
So, motion to approve. Scott. Mark. Okay, discussion.
Yeah, I just, I was pretty sure, because I heard you mention that this is for the Oneonta Theaters.
Mhm.
Okay, it was a little confusing to me because it wasn't mentioned in the motion where the contamination review is occurring, so I just thought for public record. That's where it is.
Yeah, excellent.
That's all I got.
Welcome. Any other discussion? Okay, please call for it.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisbon,
Yeah.
Councilmember Delashia.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah.
Councilmember Lynn,
Yes.
Councilmember Walker.
Aye. Sweet,
Quick question
yes,
for Carrie. It's Luke.
He is not. I'm watching.
Yeah. He's said to be on like 10 minutes ago, so hopefully he'll show up.
okay. Moving on to the discussion agenda, motion number 8, that the common council approve the following resolution, declaring the intent to form a task force for the enhancement of the Muller Plaza experience. Whereas the city of Oneonta is committed to providing the best possible quality of place for residents and visitors, and whereas the vibrancy of the city's downtown has been compromised by a gradual diminishment of entertainment and engagement experiences therein. And whereas centrally located in our downtown, Muller Plaza is an underutilized public space with potential to serve as a destination for entertainment and relaxation. And whereas the city of Oneonta is blessed to have scores of local community members who are willing to donate their time and energy to populate Muller Plaza with a summer-long schedule of intimate performances and artistic diversions at no cost to the city. Now therefore be it resolved that the city of Oneonta does hereby declare its intent to create an ad hoc committee to be called the Muller Plaza Task Force, and be it further resolved that the task force will post its mission, its meeting minutes, membership, and schedule of entertainment to the allforoneonta.com website, and that a link to the same will be posted on the city's website, oneonta.ny.us. Can I have a motion to approve? Len, followed by Emily. Discussion. Dave.
I think this is a good thing. Hopefully it will lead to something that is more than just summer long. I think when we have public spaces that aren't utilized, it leads to either an empty public space or things going on in the public space that aren't really very conducive to the good things that Oneonta has. So I think we have more going on there. It'll kind of push out any non-desirable elements. Good thing.
Other discussion?
Yeah.
Scott?
We got a couple of questions, I guess. Greg, maybe you can answer this a little bit better.
I was like, cool.
Well, Claire's not here. I thought we- Greg, but is this gonna conflict with what we already have there for permitting and like our rates that we charge, or is this supposed to work in collection? Kind of work cohesive with that, or?
I think that will come as far as a exact answer to that. I think that'll be something that the task force talks about, how we go about that in concept in my mind, and I'm not gonna speak for the mayor. But I would think, I mean, right now we have permitting. So if someone comes to us and they want to do an event there, we'll say, yes, you check the box here, you go and pay your fee. But you know, we don't have the resources to be programming the space, which is why I think the intent of this task force is to find a way so that it programs somebody or a group of volunteers are helping to make sure it's more active than it is now. I think to encourage that, it would make sense for the city to waive those fees so that that's not, you know, if you have I think the idea of it, from my understanding, is you might have someone playing guitar there for lunch, or there might be someone with, you know, displaying their artwork or something for a couple hours on a given day. You might have a number of people on any given day there. And if it's really successful, then having an application like current process that we have now might cover some of that. Maybe a new process will come out of this task force. Obviously, there's discussions to be had. This is my view of it. When even the mayor and
Answer your question, Scott? Okay. Any additional discussion? I have one thing, and I have no idea how to do this, but I would like to make a friendly amendment to this resolution and add the word additional cost to the city. Because it's my understanding that this is going to be coordinated through Destination Oneonta, which is something that the city, our contract with DO is something that we do fund. And so there is a cost to the city, but it's through that contract. I know that the intention is to not spend additional funding on that, but I think that the word additional between now and cost would clarify that. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Yes.
The chair usually can make an amendment, they can ask for an amendment to be made.
Can I ask for an amendment to be made to add additional to this resolution?
So we're taking no additional cost to the city,
Correct.
right here. Whereas.
Yeah.
So you would like one of us to say, sure.
If you're so inclined.
Friendly amendment is just what,
So I'll make the friendly amendment in the way that she asked that.
Thank you, Scott.
and we need a second.
Okay.
No, second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would the clerk please call the vote for motion number 8 with the friendly amendment?
Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritter.
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye, Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yes.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye. Okay. Motion number 9, that the common council approves the following community volunteers to serve on the Muller Plaza Task Force while acknowledging that more members will be added for council approval at a later date. Tom Brindley, Patrice Macaluso, Linda Drake, Jeff Doyle, Dara Brady, Kaylor Carpenter, Jim Maloney, Sean Lewis, Tamara Sines, Alexander Douglas, and council member Emily Falco. Do I have a motion to approve?
So.
Len, followed by
I'll second.
Dave. Discussion,
All of these people live in the city of Olean.
I can't confirm that. Actually, no. I know that at least one of them is a town resident. Mark?
Point of clarification, are we appointing Councilmember Falco to the committee, or are we appointing her as the liaison to the committee? And if so, do we need to have that? Does that even need to be part of the agenda? If she is the liaison, she will be appointed by the mayor to be that liaison. I don't think we need to vote on the membership in that.
Yes, it's a difference of one way you're a voting member, the other way you're.
I'm pretty sure, from my understanding, it would be active.
So
Okay.
the friendly amendment to pull her name out,
With the understanding that.
that she's just saying, instead of saying that she's gonna.
We can just cross it out. If she's the liaison, we don't typically say that we're the liaison in these. In any motion, so you know you're the liaison, then you don't.
Right.
Appointed by the mayor.
Right, because that's not ever a thing, right, where you would
Right.
be an active member. Yeah, no, so that's what it, so yeah. Friendly amendment.
You got it. Second, Len, thanks. Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, clerk, please call a vote on motion number 9 with the removal of Councilmember Emily Falco's name.
Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritter.
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye. Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yes.
Councilmember Bell.
Hi.
Okay. Since we are probably gonna have a robust discussion about the parking garage, I've been using the word robust in that context a lot recently. I'd like to actually flip flop and do the 30-day notice to municipality for the proposed licensure of Dosha Farms LLC to operate as a retail dispensary for cannabis on the property located at 76 Main Street, Oneonta. This is just to decide whether or not we want to waive our 30-day notice. We did get a letter from the prior Dosha Farms LLC in our packet. Anyone want to discuss this? Dave?
I reached out to him today because I had some questions. I watched his video that's posted when he went to the town. Discussed this with the town. Because he talked about in the video potentially opening up a place on 205. And so I wanted to know, is this a temporary location on Main Street or not? And he said that actually it's not a temporary plan. This is part of his larger plan, which he's got enough, or he's considering opening 3 different locations eventually. So this is the start of his project with his hope is to open in 205 and then third location somewhere else. So I have no objections to this. So,
Thanks for sharing. Any other discussion? No? Okay, so can I get a general consensus that we are willing to waive our 30-day?
Yeah.
Period. Okay, great, excellent, thank you. Okay. Yeah, please.
If we're moving forward on kind of moving down and coming back, parking, may I make a motion right now? Concerning, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, please.
So I'd like to make the following motion. This is the resolution in support of keeping the Fox Care Fitness Center open. I will send you all a copy on the scale in your email. Whereas the Fox Care Fitness Center, 1 Fox Care Drive, 29, New York, has provided critical fitness and such services cardio rehab, pulmonary rehab, physical therapy, and physical fitness. Whereas the Fox Care Fitness Center offers a fully accessible venue for area residents and patients, feature rehabilitation and physical fitness monitored by qualified health city professionals. Whereas the Fox Care Fitness Center professionals and staff members have worked with thousands of community members and patients in the region for over 24 years to improve their physical and mental health. Whereas the closure of the Fox Care Fitness Center would detrimentally affect the health and well-being of hundreds of community members and patients. Be it therefore resolved that the Common Council supports the effort of the YMCA to lease the Fox Care Fitness Center, to keep it open in its current configuration, and to serve the public and promote the wellness of our community and region.
Great. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second, emotion.
Oh, you motion. You moved. Okay, second by Len.
To discuss this, acting mayor.
Yes, yes, please.
So this was a resolution with a bit of tweak that was brought forward to the Community Wellness Committee. And we had quite a nice discussion with members of the Fox Care Fitness a few weeks ago. And it was on our agenda tonight initially, but in lieu of the fact that it was announced yesterday that YMCA would be taking over running this facility, it was agreed with the mayor to pull this. However, we certainly heard from members of the public here that they're certainly interested in supporting us, supporting this effort to try to support the YMCA's continued support of the Fox Care Fitness Center. So I recognize that we have not moved this through committee, this exact wording, but again, this is a tweak of the initial resolution that been vetted by that committee. And this is now kind of adding in the language to support the efforts of the YMCA to lease the Fox Care Center and keep it open. So certainly hope that you all vote in favor of this.
Additional discussion? Okay, great. Will the clerk please call roll?
Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Davies.
Yes.
Councilmember Risberg.
yes.
And Mayor McCarthy.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Bun.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, and thank you for your quick work.
Thank you.
Okay, so jumping back to motion number 10, which is not really a motion, it's just discussion regarding the parking garage. Greg, Sam, you have something to jump off with?
We discussed this the last meeting. The council asked DPW to take a look, again, a more thorough look at the plan question, which is a ramp coming down from the upper level to the middle level. And just to see if there are any other structural issues or otherwise that need to be addressed at this time, with the understanding that we have a decision to make. Do we keep the upper level closed essentially permanently until the project to replace the parking garage occurs? Or do we spend whatever money we need to spend now to make the repair, to reopen the ramp, to make that upper level fully accessible again?
I'm sorry, could you just remind us what the cost would be to repair the specific expansion joint, et
So,
cetera?
yeah, we've got some updated
The ramp.
costs.
Oh, okay,
So
great.
I was
Okay,
just
thank
gonna
you.
jump. But
Cool,
thanks.
sorry.
That's okay. So option one, if we were to keep the upper level closed, and would still require some removal of some abandoned / deteriorated steel beams that are underneath the ramp. That estimated cost is about $1,400. That's just to protect from any chance of something falling down anyone below.
Okay.
Option two, reopening the upper level, reopening the ramp. Estimated costs are in the range of $17,500 to $23,500. And Chris, do you want to maybe just explain what the scope of work in that option two would entail?
What's the third level, right?
Between the third level and the upper level and middle level, yeah.
There, let me just go over the 4 items that he listed, so. The initial item is the $6,000 to $12,000 estimate for the steel beam, which we discussed last time. The other issues are there are concrete curb repairs required on the southernmost concrete curb. As you come down the ramp, it's significantly deteriorated. Reinforcing is showing. They recommend that be repaired. They recommend that a heavily deteriorated loose metal decking is the decking that was used to form the concrete on the bottom of the deck. Much of it is corroded, rusting, falling down. They recommend that be removed for safety concerns, so it doesn't fall on someone that's walking underneath of it. And then they also recommend that there are 2 abandoned steel beams that were left in place when they were sistered previously, and they are falling apart and should be removed as a safety concern as well.
You have more?
No, I guess just to recap what. You know, the impact of leaving it closed, if that would be the decision. In my mind, the primary impact is the accessibility to Main Street. Obviously, the upper level, you can walk straight over, there's no steps to take or somewhat steep sidewalk to go up. There are alternative options for handicap accessibility as well as accessibility for anyone who might not be handicapped, but doesn't want to walk upstairs or struggles with that. Wall Street parking lot is a similar distance from Main Street shops as the upper level parking garage at grade level, obviously. Main Street itself. We talked about last time, we shared a map with some potential locations of additional handicap parking spaces, which those are easy, to change signage temporarily if we find we don't need that many or we need more, or in different locations, those can be changed relatively easily. But there is also the Springbrook project going on, the Ford Block project. At some point this summer, the next several months will probably be a period where that upper walkway through there will need to be closed off. So even if we do make the repairs, there will be a period of time, I'm not sure how long it'll be when they're doing active work in there, that will be inaccessible. The intent is for them to open up the walkway that goes around that building. That's the Clarion. That does involve steps. That's not an accessible route. That's just something to consider. Am I forgetting, Chris? You want to mention the walkway? Sure. Well, the pedestrian walkway itself, the flooring there needs to be replaced at some point. That's not something that's an imminent reason to close that, but it might be something we want to come back and talk more about. Maybe we find some money in the city's budget to do that now while the upper level of the garage is closed and or while Springbrook is working on the project. Taking advantage of this time rather than have it other closure sometime. Doesn't have to be done this year. It's not but it's something.
You got a price tag on that.
I mean, we were guessed $15,000 to $20,000. We do it ourselves.
What's the lead time on materials?
We haven't priced all that out. We have to close.
We just discussed it this evening.
Okay, we'll open it up for council discussion.
Yeah, just got a couple clarifying questions, Chris. Thanks for the update. So you mentioned in the kind of scenario number 2 that you still needed to address 2 things that sound like we still need to address them in scenario number 1, which was loose metal decking and abandoned beams. Is that something we would need to resolve as well? And would that add to that approximate 1,400 costs, or is that because it would be commissioner kind of out of play? It's not such an issue.
He recommended as a safety concern that they should be removed, or we cordon it off. We'd have to cordon off the entire area below the deck, below the ramp.
Right. So we're just talking about the ramp structure. It's not anything to do with the larger area, it's just that ramp structure where those beams are.
It's where the decking, like the decking and the beam, so if you look, stand underneath the ramp. If you look on the left-hand side, you're looking down the ramp. Their beams are sistered on the left-hand side. And there's two of them that were sistered, but left in place and they completely rotted. They're not really functioning as anything at this moment. And they should be removed so that they don't fall on someone walking below them. I can't remember if they're over the vehicle entryway into the basement. Do you recall? I think they were further down. And then the metal decking itself, again, they're both safety concerns for mainly for pedestrians.
So is that include, is that the 1,400 there? You said kind of remove rubbish, but is that the kind of rubbish we're referring to?
Yes.
Kind of, okay, good.
Yes.
Thanks for the clarification. That kind of stood out to me as a bit of a problem. Want to make sure we address it in the first option as well. The second is, and Greg, thanks for addressing the Spring Grove building. You know, when that potentially comes online and we have access to that, I'm assuming we'll be able to have access to the elevator there. And I think that's some kind of project you're referring to that they'll need to close that. Is there any way, just trying to pull the map and take a look at myself, that we would be able to use any of the second floor parking area for handicap parking, meaning the water spaces, which we have fully accessible van and drop a ramp, and then be able to get out that into that? I can't kind of conceptualize, is there any kind of steps into that area, or is it kind of a smooth transition? And might that be a possibility after the summer when they finish this project?
Yes, absolutely. Right now, there's an accessible route. There are handicap ramps that allow you to cross the street safely, Water Street.
Right.
The door into the yard gate, as we call it, the walkthrough is flush.
Okay.
So the elevator will be right there, so.
So we could presumably be able to add that online as well. I think that was the point that I think someone made it. I'll give you credit, Dave. Last meeting was that to have some larger van spaces available. We might be able to do that in the Wall Street lot, but certainly not on Main Street. So, okay, thanks for the answers.
I don't think that door is ADA compatible. There's no button to open it.
No, it's not. That's what I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean. It'll be useful for some, but not all.
The door, I don't know, so it's something about the elevator and why it's open, and also the door replacement. There will be doors going in. It should have that functionality, but I don't know when that was happening. That be part of that end project. Yes.
So what are the amounts?
The amounts. Option one, $1,400. Option two, ranging $17,500 to $23,500.
What was option one?
1,400 bucks.
But for what? That's just.
Leaving it closed, the
Oh,
upper
leaving
level,
it
and just taking care of the issues of anything that might fall down.
I see, okay. Yeah, if I can speak a little bit, I feel like the sentiment from downtown folks is that they do wanna see it open. I mean, I feel like. But also like kind of considering, I guess, like the multiple timelines of thinking of things that are happening, you know. Like. If we were to reopen the parking garage, the third level, right? How long is it gonna take before they start working on that, and then it actually is open? I mean, what would your estimate be? Is it gonna be like 3 months?
There's a lead. If I was given permission today, I would contact the contractor. Get them started. Probably, I forget what I said before. I think it was a 4 to 6 week lead time for materials. And then. Say. A month to do the work.
If they're available.
So then.
Yeah. So two and a half months to 3 months. From today.
You don't have to bid it out, you're just gonna, you know, a contractor that's gonna do the work, so we're not looking for a contractor.
We have a contractor that can do the work, and this is under our procurement requirement. We don't have to put it out to bid. We do need to obtain 3 quotes. I do have 1 quote. In hand. For the beam, not for the rest of the stuff. So I need an amendment to his quote.
Yeah, no, it's kind of hard, and you know, and then like, so. Okay, So what is today? April? That would probably be kind of completed, if we were to say, yeah, let's do it, it'd be completed maybe by June,
July.
July.
And then when do they start doing work in Springbrook? That makes that pass through and acceptable.
Probably by that time, I mean, told me exactly when to close that out, they got somebody that's working there, ready to. The elevator shaft.
How long is it gonna go?
I'm not certain.
You have a opening date on that project, because I know that they're working a second shift now, so.
I believe they intended to have everything completed this calendar year as far as an opening date. I don't know if they have.
Greg, how soon do we need to do work on the walkway, the upper walkway? Is that something that can wait until next year? Or is it,
I believe so.
I think it can wait a year. It's wood decking. It's starting to deteriorate from the salt. We'd like to put composite decking on it. The composite decking would require more bracing underneath for the structure itself, because the spans are wide. So we need to hire a consultant to design the additional.
But is that something that could wait till the rebuilding of the parking garage is being done? Looking at that time,
You were saying 24, 25 start, so 27 to end.
Oh, before that. I think it was starting next year, next calendar year. In some respects. Maybe a year and a half to 2 years. 25. Maybe to 26. You know, right now we're looking at being completed by the end of 25.
so we could end up having. If we decide to do this repairing the ramp, we could end up getting that done only to have nobody be able to access the walkway because of Springbrook work. And we don't know how long that's gonna last.
What's the reason for why Springbrook needs to close that arcade pass? Just the final remodeling?
They're gonna be renovating that entire arcade area, both downstairs and upstairs, putting in the new elevator. Elevator shaft is, I think, complete, but they need to install the elevator itself. Have you seen the plans? I don't know what they're exactly
I
doing.
mean, it's a being free forward house, building wall.
That's the thing, I don't. Yeah, how many weeks are they gonna need though? I mean, I see that as being months.
No, I can stop in tomorrow and ask Bill. I think they're on a push. When I saw that second shift come in last week, they're on a push.
Yeah, well, they've got a second shift.
So that thing gotta be wrapping up here next couple of months. There must be a reason why they're pushing second shift, so.
I would feel more comfortable knowing what their timeline is on that before we make the decision on the ramp. But that's me. But me personally, I'm leaning toward trying to come up with funding to reopen the ramp. Especially since we're not gonna do demo for,
We
on
have
the
years,
parking garage for one.
we get years before I see a finished product.
Wait, clarify the statement, years
We're
before.
gonna have years before we see a brand new part of that.
Right, but we'll see a demo parking garage. Probably, Greg is saying, suggesting next calendar year that they'll start demoing, right?
At some point, it could be December of 2024.
Right.
Their goal is to have design completed by the end of this year and bidding the project this winter.
I mean, demo could take place in the spring. In theory,
Assuming everyone agrees with everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big one, you gotta hate for us. We haven't really had those conversations.
Right.
Yeah. Straight up. I brought my home.
Sweet. So it sounds like. To move forward. We need more information from Springbrook. But I think there is a hesitation. To go forward with the repair. Does that sound like an explanation of the conversation?
I feel that we need to move forward, given construction and delays that go in construction and bidding. It's nice to be hopeful when the project's gonna start, but given that we have a need. At most, we're gonna spend 24, let me write it down, 24.
Yeah.
Well, we could approve the 1,400 in the meantime, I mean, can the. Like the two steel beams that have to be removed. Curb repair, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Wait, the 1,400.
Steel decking.
Can we do the 1,400 repair while we're waiting on the other information? Can we get going on that
We can,
or no? Or does it make no sense if it's gonna take?
it would be
2
cheaper to do
months?
all of it at once,
Okay,
you know?
And I think too, like you say, that's gonna take weeks to like get the bid and then get the materials and like. So even if there is a little delay with Springbrook doing that work in the arcade. this performance, I mean, there's still a lot of months of, summer and fall, even after that, where. I do think that people do use that upper level. Where, and I think it would also make our downtown constituents feel like a little less anxious about parking situations overall.
Gregor, you or Chris talked to Springbrook or Eastman about maybe moving up the timeline to now that the third floor is closed, the upper level is closed, that they take care of the work within the arcade now. And they shift. Have you guys had that conversation? or not?
I have not.
No, I view it as a private. Project, we can ask what their timeline is and have that conversation. If I have.
Well, I mean, we did create a public-private partnership. We invested $400 and some thousand into that project, so. I hope that they would be
really is it?
sensitive.
It might be dependent on whether they have the materials or not.
So can I just ask, if we were to finance the necessary repairs to reopen the third floor of the garage? Would that funding come from the general fund?
It would have to.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys want my opinion, but I'm always willing to offer it.
I love it. Sure.
And I cannot in good conscience recommend doing the repairs because I see there's too many repairs at the garage that need to be done. And there's gonna be more repairs after this investment. And as Wendell looked at the garage, to really repair it, it's gonna be $17 million. So after this $24,000 repair, there's going to be another $24,000 repair. I'm not an engineer, but I just know how many things are breaking on it. I just don't think it's a good investment. That's my opinion from the finance side. And I know that the project is going to be huge and it's going to take time, but I just want to throw that out there. Financially, I just don't think it's a good investment. But yes, it would have to come from the general.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad Jamie's sitting down, excited with her. But
Say more.
But the other thing is too, is great, how many parking spots are we giving up with the third? And then how is that correlated with the new parking spot wise, like are we gonna give up 50 parking spots, but that's 50 spots, we'll go to the 2-tier versus 3-tier. And, everybody's been worried about the parking situation, maybe this is the time. Sit back and say, okay, this is closed, let's let it work and let's see if we can afford to lose these parking spots or not. Before we start investing into a multi-million-dollar parking structure and find out, well, boy, that two-story isn't gonna be.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I guess. My concern is that. We talk about spending 24,000 to do the repair. And we don't get it done until July, maybe even mid-July. And then we find out that we can't even use the arcade for I honestly think it's gonna be months, so let's say until November or December, and then we're gonna turn around and demo. Potentially in 6 months, so you're talking a $24,000 repair for 7 months usage. I'm not saying yes or no, but I think those are the things that we need to think about.
To your question, Scott, about the number of spaces, there's 146 spaces in the upper level, 433 total in the garage. The new garage and the last sketch I saw was around 210, 220 spaces between the two levels. So 146, you'd still have more in the bottom level and the middle level, the current garage than we'll have eventually.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, there's not the same accessibility because there will be elevators in the garage in the future.
Could you say that number one more time, the new garage is proposed?
Task force. Was looking at building to it.
Yeah, I think it's around 210, 220.
Okay.
Between the two levels, and currently there's 433.
Okay, excellent.
James, debt on the parking garage.
About $400,000.
So we still have the debt, so we want $100,000. That's from a repair that was made how many years ago?
So,
Like 642,000, they did that like 8 years ago.
2011 debt.
I want to say it was 2009, 11, somewhere in there, but don't quote me on that one.
I think it was 11.
Yeah.
Last year's.
Was it 11? Yeah, it was in the,
142,000, did on it. Currently still owe after the 11 years, $400,000.
yeah, and I don't have it with me right now, but I had done a summary of how much we've invested in it just to capitalize, not just the normal operations and, taking care of it. And the capital investment, since its inception has been almost $8 million. And a lot of that was, just trying to keep it structurally sound.
So that doesn't include maintenance?
No, that does not include the operating maintenance. That was investing in keeping the structure safe and sound. It didn't improve it, didn't expand it. It just maintained it.
And that's excluding the cost of the original structure, right?
I have to go back and look. But I just remember almost the $8 million figure. I think it was 7 points something.
Okay, I have a question or a comment from Luke, so I'd like to go to him. Luke, you're on.
Sorry, just trying to find the unmute. Thank you, Acting Mayor. If you would all humor me for a moment, I've gotten some emails about this very situation, and I would just like to, for just a moment, kind of take a kind of a broad look at the situation. Greg, would you mind going over again how did we get from 3 million to 16.8? I know we've discussed this before. I'll be honest, there's been some things going on, and it's been. Would you mind just humoring me?
No, not at all. I mean, just to make sure everyone got an email that I had forwarded along, memo from Wendell after Katie had asked a question about that. So, it's tough to go line by line and compare the two estimates because you can, which we kind of did, but the scope has changed. The original estimate, maybe I ought to open up that memo just so. She was giving this. Sorry.
Just me.
Usually I'm over there.
I said you air here. Yeah, seriously.
Get a plan. We'll have to get you a desk fan over there.
Okay,
All right, so the 2020 cost estimate included $6 to $9 million for the transit hub, $5 million for the rehabilitation of the existing garage. 20. I think it was around January. January 2020.
December is when we got that final report. Yeah.
2022. Around midsummer last year, the cost estimate updating that the same general scope. 9 million, around 9 million for the transit hub, 16 million for the parking garage. 600,000 for Water Street pedestrian pathway street improvements. And 4.3 million for the Market Street streetscape improvements. That was not originally in the first conceptual study, but it's part of the DRI project. Current estimate to demolish and rebuild 9 million. 8 million for the parking garage, including the Water Street extension scope. And 4.3 million still for the Market Street improvements. I mean, the 2020 study was conceptual at a very high level. And the issue with those types of estimates is that you don't have detailed investigations, you don't have sampling materials. It's a high level estimate. Assumptions are made. Obviously, there's some time that's passed since then. Not only has there been a pandemic and the cost increases related to that, but there's only year cost increases. As well as the identification of specific scope of work. So the amount of steel rehabilitation, replacement, sandblasting and painting, the amount of concrete deterioration after they did some testing to identify and scope that was much greater than what they initially assumed. So realistically, if they hadn't done the 2020, in 2020 they had gone to the same level of detail as they've done now, that estimate would have been much higher.
Okay.
They would recognize those things at that time. So it's obviously a big difference, and I understand why that jumps out at people, but Wendell does use a third-party cost estimator to review their cost estimates. They did in 2020, and they're still using that now, I believe. And they're professional engineering architecture design firms, so I trust that their estimates are accurate, that they're to the best of their ability. I think that they've gotten better, more information now as to the actual condition of the structure and what it's going to take. And that's the reason for the change.
Thank you, Greg. And I didn't hope that didn't come off as me questioning anybody. I think I'm just trying to understand, because it likewise, it's a big jump. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, and I appreciate it. Folks in the first ward have been curious about it as well.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay, Scott?
So. Just to recap, I know we got the $400,000 in debt, if we do another 23.5 on top of it. But I also want to remind that when we have our snowstorms, we close the third part level anyway, because we're concerned. So we don't maintain it until the snowstorms are done, and we gingerly go up and remove the snow and pray. So in our timeline that we're looking at, depending when it starts snowing, which could be anywhere between October and February, we never know anymore. So we gotta remember that we do close it. And don't forget, we still have that old Oneonta Ford building that's hanging there that we might have to have an emergency expenditure on at any time when we drive by there and look at it. So we're short on money to finish taking that down. I think we really need to start looking outside the box and say, okay, well, here's the parking garage to put the money in, but we got all these other stuff that's going to be coming at us in the way of bonds and everything else. So I mean, we really got to stop and look at the big picture, and not just focus on this little silo and this little silo, and try to make the best determination. I'm not really sure putting this amount of money in right now is the best. I mean, I think, we're doing parking studies, everybody's, I know I've heard people say they still want a third level parking garage. I still feel I think we just need to be careful. We're gonna end up having hopefully the elevator open here, where we can get them from the second level to there. I don't know, I mean, this is what I'm struggling with, and I just want everybody to know what I'm struggling with, so that. I'm trying to take the big picture, and I understand that we're just looking up here, but. I mean, when you're talking about closing down the third part during snow. We're not really gaining anything for all this money to put into it.
Sure. Sorry. I have to speak to myself about a big chair.
To follow Scott's thought, and I think we all feel the struggle. I certainly made it pretty vocal last week or last meeting that I was struggling with this as well. Frankly, at that particular time, I was kind of leaning towards putting the fixes in there, because we were talking about 7 to 14, I think is where it was. The 7 sounded kind of attractive to me. Frankly, the 14 started getting me a little nervous, and the 17.5, 23.5 is certainly a little bit. However, now in light of the fact that we have A, it's going to probably take us into July and maybe even, the first or second week of July. B, we have a timeline that we're not sure about Springbrook, about when that will close off that ramp or that bridge, and then how long that scope of work will be or take. We're potentially talking about, for me, the main piece I wanted to get was the summer months. If we could spend the $7,000 to keep it open for the summer, to be able to have the tourists park conveniently there and walk across the bridge, that to me was a good investment. At this point, if we're looking at, this higher price, and we might not get it open until September or October, I think we've missed the part of the season that's most valuable to have it open. And as Scott points out, we're not too far away from closing it anyhow. So I think I'm at this point kind of leaning the other way. I certainly would like to know a little bit more about that, how that Springbrook project would impact this. But then if we're doing this, we're also pushing this 2 more weeks off. So we can count on maybe a mid-July to late July, because it will take that much longer to be able to get these bids up and running. So just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, I agree that the Springbrook closing the walkway it totally kind of changes my perspective. It's like, then if we put all this investment into it and then now it's closed for another, I mean, who knows how long. Now it's just not accessible at all anyway. So, I did want to mention another thing too, though, about the parking downtown that was proposed at the last council meeting that wasn't here, and there were some additional handicap spots proposed. Of course, I want, to make sure that downtown is accessible for everybody, but right now there are, so the upper level has been closed now for quite some time, and there's at least, I think there's 2 spots in the Wall Street lot that are handicap accessible. I walk by that parking lot every day, multiple times a day. Rarely I see maybe one of those spots being occupied. And really those spots are, like any spot in that lot, is just as accessible, whether you put a handicap sign on it or not. They're all the same width, they're all exactly the same. But when you put that handicap designation on it, then the only people that can park there are people that have that sticker. And so I just fear that it would take away too much parking that's basically accessible anyway, from a wider audience, right? Does that make sense? To designate all those spots. There's also another one right outside of our building in front of Roots. Very rarely do I see it occupied. And it's not even really that accessible because you still have to get up over the curb at that spot. So I would maybe say let's wait before we go ahead and put up all that signage or designate a lot more spots for handicap to see if from the public, if there really is a need, if people are unable to find handicap parking.
At least on Main Street.
I think there's enough. I think there's enough right now. As far as what I.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody that the difference with the handicap spots that are on the upper level is they're also designed for vans, where the ones in the Wall Street lot cannot accommodate a van, a lift van, because there's no place for it to swing a chair out or anything like that. I believe we're also, there's New York State laws about percentages of spots that we provide, aren't there?
I'm not certain if there's a law that's specific to the number of public handicap spaces in that area. For a business.
I know for business there is, I don't know about a municipality, there's ADA guidelines we have to follow.
I'm not aware of that. We can find streets outside of downtown that are typically not.
I also wouldn't want us to get into that age-old trap of saying, you know, nobody's using it, so we don't need them as much. Like I heard years ago that somebody in my ward didn't want a ramp to be put on Maple Street because they never saw anybody in a wheelchair out there. So why put a ramp in? So we just have to be careful with that. We don't want to go down that route.
I do.
Dave, were you finished with your?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, please.
I do totally understand, you know, and agree, you know, but I do feel like if you make half of. I mean, there's not very many spots in the Wall Street lot. If you're adding in another, if there's like 6 spots in there now that are all handicap, I just feel like it's a lot to designate. Until we really know that there is in fact a need, because the rest of the spots are exactly as accessible, you know, I think if it. Like, I feel like in that case of putting in a ramp, it would be better if the city put like adjusted the curve on some of our handicap designated spots, so that way someone could get a wheelchair out and not have to lift over the curb and not have to go into the street and. You know,
As a point of reference, there's also an additional one on Beach Street, directly across from the lot, that does have a curb cut,
okay.
and on the Beach Street side.
I see a lot of handicap parking already in that area, and my concern is that it's gonna take away parking from other people. If we make it so that only one group of people can park in those designated places. And we're gonna see a lot of empty spaces, but, you know, but I think if we find that there's a need. And hopefully we would hear from the community. Then, you know, then you address it then, instead of trying to be like, oh, well, there might be 6. We have vehicles that are 5, well. Yeah, I don't know, just thinking about like the loss of that garage, like a lot of people, that's like kind of one of the next closest lots. Where people that are gonna be coming to dine and shop are going to be parking. And. You know, I don't.
So to be clear, you're proposing that we don't add any additional accessible spots anywhere?
Not at this time.
Okay,
I think it's not.
okay, thanks. Yeah,
I looked up on ADA.gov and the number of parking spots required based on the total number of parking spots, and it depends on how many we have in each lot. But for example, 1 to 25 parking spots required 1 handicap accessible parking spot, 26 to 50 requires 2, 51 to 75 requires 3. So basically 1 for every 25, basically, it looks like. 101 to 150 is 5, 151 to 206. I don't think we have anything over 200, do we?
I would still recommend that we, if we're gonna do this, I think we need to make sure there are van accessible spots over in Wall Street. Because that's the big one we've been removing. I understand and I agree with you that if somebody has a handicap sticker, sometimes they can use a regular spot. And they're gonna travel as much as anybody else, but we don't want to take away van accessible spots. And suddenly have nothing for them, so.
This says that at least 1 of every 6 spaces must be van accessible.
1 in every 6 handicap spots.
And.
yeah, please.
I do agree with that, and that was another thing I felt like maybe instead of adding a bunch more handicap spots, maybe we make sure that the ones that there are van accessible. So I don't know if they are or not.
Chris, can I ask a question, just clarification? I don't know if you spotted it there, but was that that this number is based on total municipalities lots or in a particular lot, you know what I'm saying? So is that per Wall Street that would apply, or is that meaning we have to have X for as many spots as we have for?
It says the chart below shows the number of accessible spaces required by the 2010 ADA standards for accessible design. Total number of parking spaces provided in a parking lot or facility. Minimum number of accessible parking spaces permitted.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know how that works for Main Street though. Doesn't say. Unless Main Street is considered. Like the Main Street shopping district is considered a lot.
I'm not aware of any requirements for these.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull a mark. Can I just get a sense of where the council is on the decision to either kind of do the bare minimum? I think we have two options, as Greg pointed out, sort of do the bare minimum and make the ramp safe, so that nothing can fall and injure someone, or do a full repair to reopen the third floor, the garage.
I thought it was waiting until get Springbrook and now it's gonna be closed.
Okay. Mark, did you have anything on that?
I was giving you the option number,
Oh, option one. Okay,
but I don't like having more information, just recognizing we've just extended that window.
okay, Luke?
I'm just doing the same thing as Mark Davies there, just the first
Okay,
option.
great. So without any real strong, sentiment in the other direction, I think it's safe to say that that's the way we're leaning, but I think Scott has a point, which is that if we are going to end up doing this larger structural repair, we'll want to know what the Springbrook timeline is. So I think it's like a tentative approval for the $1,400. That's not a thing, but I'm just saying that. Until we know, what Springbrook is going to do, but that's the way the council. Does that sound like a fair assessment? Okay, so, oh, please.
So do I move forward with the $1,400 project?
What does the council think?
How about we just do this and or yes or no? I make a motion that we go ahead with the $1,400 repair now.
Excellent. Should I have a second? Mark Davies?
So,
Oh, yeah.
well, we're at discussion
Okay,
now,
sorry.
so,
I was like, oh, no.
so we're not gonna bother. So whatever Springbrook says is not gonna matter. Is that what we're saying? We're only
Yeah,
doing
that's-
the $1,400 repair, because we already said that it doesn't make sense to move forward with $1,400 repair if we're. Going to reopen the ramp and do that work.
Which we were gonna get a better price if we do it all together.
Right.
So,
The only reason I made this motion was because it's getting really confusing and I figured if we put something down, then we could vote it off.
Well,
Yeah,
can it wait 2 weeks?
Yes. It's just
Can we
2
get an
weeks
answer for
further.
Springbrook within 2 weeks? Okay, I say we table it. And wait.
Motion to table.
okay, Mark, motion to table.
I'll second.
Luke, second Luke. Just vote. Okay,
Councilmember Murphy,
Aye.
Councilmember Davies,
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger,
This is a vote to table.
Yes.
Yes.
Acting Mayor Garcia,
aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henson.
Yes.
Councilmember Docker.
Okay, 2 weeks.
And then it's dropped dead, it's dropped dead times that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because we're asking our city staff to be all this information all the way around because we were, having a difficult time making a decision. I mean, rightfully so, this is a big decision, but. I think when we get that information, and whatever we have at that point, we make a decision. Sorry, that's my only 2 cents.
I agree.
So. I have
On the
a-
parking garage,
On the parking garage.
please, I saw you
When-
there with your resource.
When are we, the council, gonna have the next step?
Well, just if there's any discussion or,
Next step, next schedule,
Yeah,
so
so
respond to council on public questions and comments, so. When are we gonna have a workshop or?
well, we've responded to the comments. I think our next step, discussion yesterday, or weekly meeting with Wendell. Progress of things. We'll probably be at about 30% design. Early to mid-May, or mid-May, I'm thinking probably the second meeting in May. Foster remind us of a meeting, we would schedule another presentation to the council where we're at now for the discussion.
So the council's not gonna have an opportunity to full on have discussion on this. You want us to submit questions to you, that's the only way we're gonna do this.
Well, that's what I was saying, is we could have that discussion amongst ourselves now, if you're prepared to do that, if everyone is amenable.
Okay, I guess, maybe that's my misunderstanding, but we had a presentation, obviously there was opportunity to choose on the spot, but there might have been. More questions that came up over time, we received one. And we responded to that.
I do have some.
So if there are, we can certainly, but I wasn't aware that there were.
I was just under the impression that you guys are gonna bring something back, and we as a council are gonna work with Wendell and. With our. Spin on it.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really had the opportunity to discuss it as a group with each other. So that was just like our individual thinking. Len, do you want to start? You have your,
Well, for me, some of my quick notes are, what is the temporary location of our one and only tenant? Where are they being moved to? We're talking at least 12, if not 18 months, that they're gonna be. For longer, what are we, because I went down, according to the manager, I guess I'm the only one that's gone down there to talk to him about it, so. He would like some communication with either staff or somebody.
Yeah, we've involved Trailways throughout the conceptual design process. We have not had conversations I had for Wendell, where recently. We're not at that point yet. I mean, that would be a little bit further along the process to figure out exactly how that's gonna work. But as far as input on the design and what their needs are, that's been taken into full account.
And so Ginny answered the amount of the current debt on the garage, which is a little over 400,000. Is that something that is bonded, so we're not being able to break that payment, we're gonna continue that debt and then add the new debt of the garage. And then we'll be kind of looking at Water Street and the types of businesses that are on Water Street. I can't tell from the diagrams of what type of protection is in place for the pedestrians. So there's now two-way traffic going down Water Street. And if anybody has never been on Water Street at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, suggest you go do that. Within the presentation, Wendell's giving ideas that we could potentially, says allow for future development above. What are they suggesting? 1, 2 stories? And then what is the projection revenue stream from those? Are they air rights or are they something else? What is that situation? Because it's obviously another public-private partnership. I would like to know what I asked Wendell in 2019 or 20, or it must have been 20. What are the legacy costs? What are the legacy costs for the new parking garage? Are we gonna be able to budget for that? Something we haven't done, we just got done saying that, we haven't been proactive, we're always reactive, we wait until there's a large chunk of work to do. Now, here we are 11, 12 years later, and we're still carrying 3/4 of the debt. So we haven't got it, so, what is Wendell suggesting? I don't know if it's city staff that's gonna look at this, so these are just some of the questions that I had about the design phase that we're in. And I just didn't know if we were having an open session. When we were.
oh, sorry, please. I was just
I
gonna
don't know if
say,
you want me to try to respond to any more of those now. I did a couple of them, but.
oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, on the Water Street businesses and pedestrian safety, currently, we're looking at like a shared space street design for that, where there's wash curbs, the pavement is designed. It's not your typical street that appears to be and is functionally dominated by vehicles, but instead is more designed for pedestrians. In addition to that, there would be a sidewalk, the sidewalk kind of ends after Black Oak and starts again by City Sail. Originally, that was intended to be completed. For whatever reason, that work wasn't done in the past iteration of Water Street reconstruction. That would be connected. So you have a sidewalk there, you have parallel parking along that stretch. And then again, a shared street space is sort of, I don't know if you've heard of that concept. If you Google it after and see some examples, like I said, that around it, have some links. It's intended for very low speed streets, low volume roads that have a mixture of uses in downtown environments such as Water Street, where you expect to be having pedestrians and bikes and delivery trucks and cars in the same space. So you don't expect as a driver that you're gonna be able to go 30 miles an hour. It's just designed differently. And with Water Street extension, the ramp designed to go away, the only traffic going on Water Street would be to access that second level deck or top deck of parking, so half as much as there is now, roughly, actually less than that. And then anyone that's accessing it, this is picking up or dropping off or that sort of thing, delivery trucks, as they do now. And then the turnaround at the end, obviously, there's each car is a place to turn around, delivery trucks. They how large it might usually do a 3 or 4 point turn, but they have the ability to turn around and go out. If it was an 18-wheeler, that would still have a back out like it does now. So there'd be reduced volume of traffic. There wouldn't be any through traffic. With a two-way, you have the width for that with the ramp. And you still have the width to have a sidewalk. There would be the option we've talked about having a gate at the very end, so you have your entrance to the parking area as close as we can reasonably and safely put it to Chestnut Extension. So you pull in there, you could after a certain hour every night, or just for special events, you could close the gate and then leave the whole street accessible just to pedestrians. So the issue you're talking about, I've seen it myself late at night, especially sometimes you can see a lot of pedestrians flooding the street, and it's not a safe space for cars to be going in and out. So you can potentially eliminate that issue entirely. And then that also gives some of the businesses back there the opportunity to take advantage of outdoor seating, increasing that, more active street. Is really kind of what we're going for. A little bit more like Main Street. So we'll obviously we'll further develop up their drawings, maybe even reminders about that time to.
One of my concerns was when the bus was backing out, when you have 2 spots, I don't know if that's been addressed. The original one, I think anytime we're asking for that, maybe we'll be able to back up, the less backing up they can do, the better, the safer.
Yeah.
Especially since you want people off right there.
And we've designed that so that they can go through now, so the two-way in and out entrance, which is basically where Water Street Extension is now, you go in and then turn left into the new garage, and you come back out that way. We've designed that so the trailway buses could just pull through onto that, so they wouldn't have to back up at all.
Yep.
I'm curious, just in dollars and cents. Because currently for the new parking garage, it's a $10 million bond proposed for the city to take out. Does that include this 400,000 that we still owe?
No, that's in addition to.
So it's really like 10.4 project.
Well, we're 10.4 right now. It'll be 10 by the time we do the construction. Yeah. The prices are moving between now and last time spent out, so.
Yeah, but also remember, by the time you take out that debt, the other debt will be more paid down.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, sure.
Yeah, we received some correspondence, all of us, and the member of the public noted some of the challenges with the tank in the area that the toilet building that was building. Has that been addressed? And if so, how has that been addressed? It seems that there's, even before this particular information was given to us, that there was quite a bit of challenges with trying to site a smaller hub in that particular area.
Yeah, that actually, it's funny, the first time when the GRI was being discussed, and someone then made the concept of a transfer going there, I said, well, what about the station? So that's something with Wendell involved, we've been discussing that since the conceptual phase, really got into detail with it in this phase. It has been addressed with building being sited such that it's not too close. We're able to access that. If we needed to excavate for some reason, it's not going to impact the building in the future. The existing lift station can stay, the tank that's there, not the tank. Some of the piping, I think the piping is actually going to remain basically as is. There are some controls that are there, and it's a dosing pump for the chemical feed that would have to just be relocated, that would be probably adjacent to or even inside the transit hub building. As for access for our sewer lift truck, I know that Ryan shared an image of what that looks like, which is very similar to what we have. You know, the plaza would be big enough to accommodate that. There'd be a spot for the truck to now drive over and access that. They put up temporary barricades to do that, which is no more than monthly. Usually they don't have a big truck there every month. So it has been addressed. And that's it.
So then, I'm sorry, one more question if I could, I understand the interface between what we call now the third floor bridge in this particular structure. So we were just talking earlier about the possibility of kind of redecking that bridge. Or we understand that bridge actually will now be able to intersect with where this second story is, so the second story will be the height of the third floor now.
No, the second floor would be a little bit lower than the current second floor. You know, you ramp up a little bit to get off Water Street to the garage. Now you would go flat out, straight out, no real elevation change, maybe a liner change onto that ramp. The tower that would be replaced in that northeast corner where the bridge actually would still be 2-story.
Okay.
So if you're on the Water Street level, you could take the stairs or the elevator up to the walk bridge. And the walk bridge itself would remain.
Okay, gotcha. I was trying to understand the interface. Thank you.
Obviously, if you build above the development, the first story above the garage would meet up with that stair tower.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just had one concern of the elevator going up. We had an elevator in this thing once before, I think. By the looks, and obviously we didn't really take good care of it. Never installed. You never installed it? Since 1974, when it was built, never installed. I just see. When Brian work, there's issues with elevators. And just something to take into account, if you're gonna rely on an elevator, to go up to that walkway for handicap and like that. And could be spending a lot of money between routine maintenance and having the company come in and test it twice a year, and every time it gets locked up, and increased calls for the fire department to get people out of there. And so just something to put in there. You're gonna have to have some type of security. Well,
Yeah, we've talked about adding security cameras in stair towers, the new stair towers being designed to be more open, not so enclosed where they're inviting for. And you be out of view, we want to make them more in view, so that discourages them.
you're gonna get a cleaning crew, because I can guarantee you now.
We have one now, and it's, impossible to keep up with and really keep it nice the way it's designed, so hopefully we will have a much better situation. And then with the Springbrook elevator that's in that building, accessible to the public, you have two options. Obviously, the parking garage one would go down to the Market Street level, providing that accessibility if you're going to the transit hub or down to that level of park. Thanks.
Like.
Also, the potential development, how we describe this corner.
Oh, it's a plaza.
What is the square footage of that? I can't find the potential square footage is.
I think I measured somewhere 1,500 to 2,000 square feet or so. What I would envision if there's a development above, housing above that, we're talking about designing for 3 potential stories. So your earlier questions. That corner, I think, would be a perfect main entrance to that building off of the Market Street level. Maybe that's their lobby, maybe there's some other commercial space in there. Then you would go up from there. So that is the southwest corner. That stair tower would just be a stair tower if we just did our project, but it has the designed, ability to add on an elevator like our.
So within this potential development, I'm not against that. But I want to recognize that it's going to eat up parking spaces. So if you're building residentials, two stories over the parking garage, there's potential. Springbrook is building like 24 apartments. That's the number, 24 apartments. So they're doing that in that space. I would envision over this parking garage, you could do that per floor at least. So how many parking spaces will those tenants want to utilize? I'm assuming that's going to be a revenue stream from leasing, but to To your point, that you brought up earlier, it's fitting in our residents, I know there's concern about folks. Whether there's enough parking spots or not, and if we're gonna take a floor away, and then we're gonna introduce more tests and small business.
Yeah.
You're not.
Go ahead, Greg, you're up there. Yeah. Two things, to your point, Scott, about the elevator, something that could be done down the road is. The elevator could also be turned off. Maybe at midnight or 2 a.m. That way, if anybody is coming in late that actually really needs to use it for handicap accessibility. They could park on the upper level and go across the street and go into the building and then access the elevator that way, the other elevator. To get back up to Main Street if that's needed. As far as building above the parking garage, I know we've talked about that a lot tonight, and Wendell talked about that as a possibility, but I mean, right now it's a hypothetical. Like, I just don't want us to get too deep about the hypothetical about whether we're gonna build above it, somebody else is gonna build above it, or if we're gonna build solar panels above it, or just cover above it to protect the rest of the structure. I know all those were brought up, but I think building another level above that right now is just a hypothetical, and I think we're just gonna get into the weeds if we keep.
But it's a potential revenue stream. That's why it's brought up to us. To help pay off this park garage. of 14, well, whatever millions that it comes out of.
I know, but then you still need funding, the extra funding to build that,
When develop
that, or you have to find a developer that's willing to do it as well.
Well, I'm thinking they must know somebody, or why did they suggest it, or maybe. That's what
We asked for that ability. You know, that was our suggestion. We have this huge parcel in the center of downtown. It's a great location for park garage, it's a better location for activity, so. Designing the structure so it can be built above, that's a big savings to the
And
developer.
I'm okay with that, but. I think if we start going down that road, we're also gonna get pushback from some tenants of Main Street buildings. I know one in particular that's been pushed back. If we're building third floor or even higher than that. Because then it's gonna block their view out the back of the building as well, so. I mean, if that's done down the road, that's fine, but I'm just, my fear is that that's gonna slow this process down if we're hinging on that. To pay for the garage itself.
I'm trying to understand revenue. Right?
No,
So
I understand that.
there's potential for parking lease revenue, there's potential for air rights, if that's what we're gonna call it. What does that look like? How much is it? Is it gonna help really substantially pay for the debt that we're gonna incur? And I just don't wanna be put in the position where we are now, where we're 12 years later and we haven't paid off 3/4 of the debt on the last reactive.
But if we had a developer approach us to actually want to do that.
That's a potentially interested developer.
Okay, Mark.
So one thing I haven't heard any conversations about, and I really think we need to keep this, I mean, we can talk about the parking garage quite a bit, but the reality that we're not gonna have a parking garage for 2 years. Really need to have a plan of what we're gonna do with parking. We're talking about having some challenges of closing off the upper deck. So what happens when we have none of the parking here? So I think we really, our planning needs to include that. I think it's fine to focus here, but we do need to keep that in mind, because this is gonna be really disruptive to downtown businesses for, minimally 2 years. I think we need to have a plan and, kind of a way to attack that.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things we talked about is the 27 Market Street building. We're hoping to go out to bid relatively soon. We're probably at 90% drawings and specs from last summer when we initially looked at that. We kind of put it on hold, applying again to restore New York, trying to see if we're planning to demolish that. We're unsuccessful at this point. We'd like to go forward with it and get actual construction pricing, and then we can talk more about that. Assuming that building comes down, it's a level site, we don't have a developer that's talking to us right now, we're ready to go and build something there. So that being temporary parking makes perfect sense to me. I think you can get 50 spaces out of that without having laid it out. That's something. We've also had some talks about could there be an OPT shuttle, circling Main Street, Market Street, that area, just connecting, so there's a little bit more accessibility. And also we have the Maskey Field in North Park. those lots are empty other than the two people that park there every day during the day when there's not a big event going on at the field or somewhere else. With a shuttle, that makes that more accessible and most people aren't want to walk. They could, but no one does now, because it's so far away. But with a shuttle, I think that can help with meeting things. Aside from that, renting space from private properties, wherever they may be in the vicinity is an option. We haven't talked to anyone about that yet, but that's something that we'll be talking about. Have to come up with a
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, does everyone feel complete on that topic for tonight? Yeah, Jenny, did you have something?
I just want to say something that's very obvious, but I just think it's worth saying. If we end up doing nothing as far as the transit hub or that area on Market Street, the parking garage is still there and we have to deal with it in some way. So I know it's an obvious statement, but I just want us to remember that when we're talking about the plans that, Wendell is working on. If we do nothing, we still have to deal with a very deteriorated parking garage. One way or the other.
Well, you raise a really good point, and the thing that I've been trying to figure out is in 2020, what we're looking at now, which is a demo and rebuild with a new transit hub, was quoted at $22,000 or was high level estimated at $22,000 or $22 million. And thank you. And I know, dang. See that one. No, $22 million. And at the time, it was too expensive to even consider. We were given two other less expensive options at $16 million and $9 million. Everyone was kind of excited about the $16 million one, and we were going, how are we going to afford this? Now, and then it became, we can't afford the $16 million one, we're going to have to do the $9 million one. But now the $9 million one is impossible, and we're looking at spending $25 million. And so I guess my big hangup is, and I agree with you, Jenny, we have to do something. But if $22 million was too expensive in 2020, how is $25 million and something we're even considering? That's a lot of debt to take on. And I think that we absolutely need to understand, like you were saying, the big picture. If we can't afford this project, we have to do something. And so this maybe can't be provided as the only option, as the only way forward. I don't know what else we can do. I'm not the expert, but I do know that if I can't afford something, I don't buy it. And for me, that feels like the obvious thing. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you. No, let me have that one. So, okay, that's enough about that. What's next? Yeah, it's privately to me. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we already did our additional business. Is there any additional business? No, excellent. Do we have any correspondence? I hate to say it, but that's fine, because you know what? We also have to for an executive session, so. Okay, get cozy.
You will be forwarded in your email a copy of an invitation from David Hayes. He's working with the Legion to coordinate the Memorial Day Parade for Monday, May 29th. Step off is 10 a.m. line up at 9 in front of Foothills, and he's inviting all the common council members to walk in the parade alongside other elected officials. I'll send a copy to your email so everybody knows.
Okay. I know I've at least one need to go to an executive session. Is there a second thing? I was advised that there might be a second thing.
Am I the person?
No, you're probably the second thing.
In that case, I'm the second.
Okay, the first thing is to discuss the review of our city administrator, which is the performance of a specific employee of the city. Excellent, great.
Perhaps I can go first. That want to be here.
Okay, you can go first. So the first thing is,
litigation issue.
Litigation. Do I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation? Luke, first, Dave, second. Excellent. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
All right.
Great. Who we need in the room? Dave? David? Okay, Greg? Carrie?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else? Okay.